Commander Zeph Carillion floated inside his crystal ship, watching in horror as another Vellani vessel exploded into brilliant fragments. The beautiful crystalline structures that housed his people shattered like glass under the dark weapons of the Korthic Dominion. His own ship shook as enemy fire passed close by. "Commander, we have lost the Harmony's light," reported his communications officer, her voice trembling through the ship's crystal network. "That makes 12 civilian transports destroyed in the last hour." Zeph felt his crystal body dim with grief. The Vellani had known peace for over 3,000 years. They were artists, philosophers, and healers. They had never built weapons because they had never needed them. Their alliance with the peaceful coalition had always protected them from the few violent species in the galaxy, but the coalition was too far away. The distress signal Zeph had sent 3 days ago should have reached them by now, but no help had come. The Korthic were moving through Vellani space like a plague, destroying everything in their path. "Sir, the navigation computer is ready to send another emergency broadcast," called out Navigator Lyell from her position near the ship's core. "I have calculated the exact coordinates for Coalition High Command." "Send it immediately," Zeph ordered. "Tell them we have maybe 6 hours before the Korthic reach our homeworld. Millions of civilians are trapped there." Lyell's crystal form glowed as she interfaced with the ship's systems. But unknown to her, the battle damage from earlier had corrupted the navigation computer. Instead of sending the signal toward the coalition worlds, the broadcast shot out toward a small yellow star that most galactic maps marked only as Quarantine Zone, Dangerous Deathworld. Meanwhile, 93 light-years away, Dr. Lisa Morgan was finishing her night shift at the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex in California. She had been monitoring space for alien signals for 15 years and had never found anything more interesting than pulsars and background radiation. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago as she stared at the endless streams of data flowing across her screens. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence had become routine work, and Lisa often wondered if she was wasting her life looking for something that might not exist. Then every alarm in the facility started screaming at once. "What the hell?" Lisa jumped from her chair as red warning lights flashed throughout the control room. Her computer screens showed signal strength readings that should have been impossible. The incoming transmission was so powerful it was overloading their receivers. "Dr. Morgan," shouted her assistant, Pete Williams, from across the room. "You need to see this. The signal is artificial, definitely artificial, and it's coming from outside our solar system." Lisa ran to Pete's station, her heart pounding. After all these years of searching, this was really happening. "Are you sure it's not interference from a satellite?" "Positive. The signal originated from a point 47 light-years away, and it's using modulation patterns we've never seen before." But that's not the crazy part. Pete's hands shook as he pointed at another screen. The AI translation program is picking up fragments. It thinks this might be a language. Lisa grabbed the headphones and listened to the alien transmission. Even through the static and computer processing, she could hear something that sounded like desperation in the strange musical tones. "Peaceful ... need help. Innocent civilians. Under attack ... please respond." The partial translation sent chills down Lisa's spine. This wasn't just first contact with an alien civilization. This was a cry for help from beings who were dying. "Pete, call the director immediately. Then contact the Pentagon, NASA, and the White House. Tell them we have a Code 7 situation." Lisa's training kicked in as she began recording everything. Code 7 was the designation for confirmed extraterrestrial intelligence, something they had hoped for but never truly expected. Within 2 hours, a small radio facility in the California desert had become the most important place on Earth. Military vehicles surrounded the complex as officials from every major government agency arrived. President Jake Coleman himself was flying in from Washington. Lisa found herself in the strange position of briefing the most powerful people in the country about something she barely understood herself. The conference room was packed with generals, scientists, and politicians, all staring at her as she played the alien transmission. The signal is definitely artificial and definitely from outside our solar system, Lisa explained to the room full of tense faces. Our best translation algorithms suggest it's a distress call from a peaceful civilization under attack by aggressors. Secretary of Defense Amy Patterson leaned forward in her chair. How confident are we in this translation, Doctor? About 60% on the basic meaning. The emotional content is much clearer. Whoever sent this is terrified and desperate. The mathematical portions of the signal suggest massive casualties. President Coleman was quiet for a long moment. Lisa watched him wrestle with a decision that no human leader had ever faced before. How long would it take us to respond? Admiral Kevin Hayes, the newly appointed commander of the United Earth Space Command, cleared his throat. Sir, with our fastest ships and the new fusion drives, we could reach the signal's origin point in approximately 8 days. But we would be going in completely blind. What kind of force could we send? The president asked. Everything we have, sir. The mining ships from the asteroid belt could be retrofitted with weapons. The Mars Colony Defense Fleet is already armed. We could assemble about 200 ships if we stripped defenses from everywhere else. Secretary of State Carl Brooks looked uncomfortable. Mr. President, shouldn't we try diplomatic contact first? We don't know anything about galactic politics or what we might be walking into. We know innocent people are being killed, Amy Patterson replied firmly. If someone was attacking American civilians and asking for help, would we debate diplomacy or would we respond immediately? Lisa watched the debate continue for another hour, but she could see that the president had already made his decision. There was something in the alien signal that had touched something deep in human nature. The same instinct that made people run toward burning buildings to save strangers was now pushing humanity toward the stars. Admiral Hayes, President Coleman finally said, you have authorization to mobilize every combat-capable vessel we possess. This is a rescue mission, but be prepared for hostile contact. We will not stand by while peaceful beings are slaughtered. The room exploded into activity as orders were transmitted around the solar system. Within hours, mining ships were being pulled back from the asteroid belt for weapons installation. The shipyards around Mars began working around the clock to retrofit civilian vessels with military hardware. Admiral Hayes took personal command of the flagship U.S. Liberty, a massive vessel originally designed to transport colony equipment to distant worlds. Now it bristled with railguns and missile launchers, leading a fleet that represented humanity's first step into the larger galaxy dot. As the fleet prepared to jump into hyperspace, none of the humans aboard realized that they were considered the most dangerous species in the known galaxy. The rest of the civilized universe had marked Sol System as forbidden, because Earth was a death world that produced apex predators too, violent for galactic society. The peaceful aliens who had accidentally received their help were about to learn what happened when you asked the galaxy's most effective killers to rescue you. And the aggressive species who had been terrorizing the peaceful worlds for centuries were about to discover why no one had ever been foolish enough to wake up the humans before. The U.S. Liberty and its escort fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying 200 ships full of warriors who thought they were going to save innocent lives. They had no idea they were about to terrify 2 different alien civilizations and accidentally reshape the balance of power in the entire galaxy. The human fleet burst out of hyperspace in a flash of blue light that lit up the Vellani system like a new star. Admiral Kevin Hayes stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty staring at the tactical display that showed the scene before them. What he saw made his blood boil with rage. Dozens of beautiful crystal ships were being hunted through space by dark, angular vessels that looked like floating weapons. The attackers were systematically destroying what were obviously civilian transports. Hayes watched in horror as a graceful crystal ship tried to flee, only to be cut apart by energy beams from 3 pursuing warships. "My God," whispered Captain Ryan Mitchell from his position at the weapons console. "They're slaughtering civilians." Hayes had seen combat before, but this was different. This was genocide happening right in front of his eyes. The crystal ships weren't even shooting back. They were just trying to run while the dark ships picked them off, one by one, like hunters killing deer. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes," he announced over the fleet communications. "We have what appears to be a massacre in progress. Enemy vessels are attacking defenseless civilians. All units are authorized to engage hostile targets immediately." Lieutenant Commander Beth Turner, the fleet's tactical officer, was already tracking the enemy ships. "Sir, I count 47 hostile vessels. They appear to be some kind of predator design. The civilian ships look completely helpless." "Then we level the playing field," Hayes replied grimly. "All ships, attack pattern Delta. Target the aggressors only. Protect the civilians at all costs." The human fleet moved into battle formation with a precision that came from decades of military training. These weren't professional warships, but they were crewed by professionals who understood combat. Mining ships became gunboats, transport vessels became missile platforms, and cargo haulers became assault ships. Aboard the Korthik flagship, War Leader Vex was enjoying the hunt when his sensors detected the new arrivals. The Korthik had been raiding peaceful species for centuries, and they had never encountered serious resistance. The galaxy's civilized races preferred diplomacy to warfare. "War Leader, unknown vessels have appeared in the system," reported his tactical officer. "They appear to be some kind of industrial ships, but they are moving in military formation." Vex studied the sensor readings with amusement. "Probably another coalition of peaceful fools trying to play soldier. How many ships?" 200, sir. They are broadcasting demands for us to cease hostilities immediately." Vex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 200 mining ships against the Korthik fleet? This will be entertaining. All vessels, destroy the newcomers quickly, and resume hunting the Crystal Singers. But the Korthik had never fought Deathworlders before. The first human missile salvo came from 60 different ships at once, creating a wall of destruction that swept through the Korthik formation. 3 Korthik destroyers simply vanished in balls of fire as human weapons found their targets with deadly accuracy. What in the void was that? Vex screamed as his flagship shook from near misses. Those were military-grade weapons. On the UES Liberty, Beth Turner was coordinating the fleet's attack with cold efficiency. Target Alpha 7 is down. Shifting fire to Alpha 3. Mining ship Colorado, you have a clear shot on the cruiser at bearing 270. The human ships fought. Nothing like the peaceful species the Korthik were used to hunting. Instead of running or trying to negotiate, they attacked with a savagery that shocked the predators. Worse, they were good at it. Captain Ryan Mitchell watched as 2 Korthik ships tried to flank his position. Instead of retreating, he ordered his ship straight toward them in a ramming attack that forced both enemy vessels to break formation. As they scattered, other human ships caught them in crossfire. "These new aliens fight like demons," reported a Korthik ship captain over the communication network. "They show no fear, and their tactics are completely unpredictable." What the Korthik didn't understand was that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. Every trick the aliens tried had been used in human wars centuries ago. The Korthik thought they were predators, But they had never met apex predators from a death world. Meanwhile, the Valani were watching the battle with growing terror. Commander Zeph Carillion had hoped for rescue, but the violence unfolding before him was beyond anything in Valani experience. The newcomers fought with a brutality that made even the Korthik look gentle. "Commander, the unknown aliens are trying to communicate with us," reported his communications officer. "But their language patterns are completely alien. The computer cannot translate." Zeph watched as one of the rescuer ships actually rammed a Korthik vessel, both ships exploding in a fireball that lit up local space. What kind of being sacrifice? Themselves so casually? Are we being rescued or conquered? The human fleet was winning, but the cost was higher than Admiral Hayes liked. 7 human ships had been destroyed and dozens more damaged. But the Korthik were being systematically eliminated by tactics they had never encountered. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the fleet's xenobiologist, was trying to establish contact with the crystal ships from her position aboard the U.S. Liberty. "Admiral, I'm getting responses from the civilian vessels, but they seem terrified of us. Their bio-readings suggest extreme fear." "Fear of us?" Hayes was confused. "We're trying to save them." "Sir, I think we might look as scary to them as the attackers do. These readings suggest they're more afraid of us than they were of their original enemies." Hayes couldn't understand that. The humans were clearly the good guys in this fight. They had come to help, not to conquer. But as he watched the tactical display, he began to see the battle from alien eyes. Human ships moved like pack hunters, coordinating attacks with ruthless efficiency. When damaged, they didn't retreat, but often made suicide runs that took enemy ships with them. Human communications were full of aggressive enthusiasm that probably sounded terrifying to peaceful aliens. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes," he broadcast. "Enemy resistance is breaking. Do not pursue fleeing vessels beyond the system boundary. Our mission is rescue, not revenge." War leader Vex watched his fleet dissolve around him as more Korthak. Ships fled or were destroyed. These unknown aliens fought with a combination of tactical brilliance and savage determination that his species had never encountered. Worse, they seemed to actually enjoy combat. "All remaining vessels retreat immediately," Vex ordered. "Mark this system as forbidden. Whatever species this is, they are not to be engaged without full fleet support." As the surviving Korthik ships jumped hyperspace, the human fleet turned its attention to the damaged crystal vessels floating throughout the system. Admiral Hayes ordered all ships to begin rescue operations immediately. "All civilian vessels, this is Admiral Hayes of the United Earth Space Command," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We received your distress call and came to help. We are here to provide assistance and medical aid." But the Valani ships were not responding with gratitude. Instead, they were clustering together defensively, as if the humans were another threat. Several crystal ships were actually fleeing the system rather than accepting human help. Dr. Rodriguez managed to establish basic communication with one Valani vessel. The alien who appeared on screen was a beautiful creature made of living crystal, but its entire form was dim with fear. "Please," the alien said in broken English that the computers had just learned to translate. "We thank you for stopping the hunters, but please do not harm us. We are peaceful people. We have no weapons or treasures worth taking." Elena was horrified to realize that the aliens thought humans might be conquerors too. "We're not here to hurt anyone. We came because we heard your call for help. We want to help your wounded and make sure you're safe." The crystal being flickered with confusion. You came to help? But you fight like the ancient legends. You are warriors from the death songs." "Death songs?" Elena didn't understand, but she was beginning to realize that humans had a reputation in the galaxy, and it wasn't a good one. On the bridge, Admiral Hayes was getting reports from across the fleet. Every attempt at friendly contact was being met with terror from the aliens they had just saved. The crystal beings were so afraid of humans that some were actually injuring themselves trying to get away. "Sir," reported Captain Mitchell, "the aliens seem to think we're some kind of legendary monsters. They keep using terms our computers translate as Deathworld demons and void-born killers." Hayes stared at the tactical display showing his fleet surrounded by the aliens they had risked everything to save. All around them, beautiful crystal ships hung in space like frightened animals, afraid to flee but too terrified to approach. For the first time since receiving the distress call, Admiral Hayes began to wonder if humanity had made a terrible mistake. They had come to save innocent lives, but somehow they had become the thing the innocents feared most. The rescue mission was turning into something much more complicated than anyone had expected. Admiral Kevin Hayes stared at the medical report in disbelief. 3 Villani had literally shattered from fear when human medics tried to help them. The crystal beings were so delicate that even the stress of being near humans could kill them. How? Is that possible? Hayes asked Dr. Elena Rodriguez as they stood in the U.S. Liberty's medical bay. "We're trying to help them, not hurt them." Elena pointed to the isolation chamber, where injured Villani floated in a special atmosphere. "Their biology is completely different from ours, Admiral. Human body temperature is 98.6 degrees. That's hot enough to damage their crystal structure. Our breath contains bacteria that could poison them. Even our electromagnetic fields from our equipment interfere with their nervous systems." Through the transparent wall, Hayes could see the alien patient. It looked like a living sculpture made of colored glass, beautiful but fragile, beyond anything he had ever imagined. The creatures. Light was dim, which Elena had explained meant it was afraid. "Sir," interrupted Captain Ryan Mitchell as he entered the medical bay, "Commander Carillion from the Villani fleet is requesting permission to come aboard. He says he wants to thank us personally for saving his people." Hayes nodded. "Set up the meeting in Cargo Bay 7. Have the environmental team create a safe zone for him." He paused, thinking about the cultural mess they had stumbled into. "And Mitchell, have security standing by, but keep them out of sight. We don't want to scare him more than necessary." 2 hours later, Hayes found himself in the strangest diplomatic meeting in human history. The cargo bay had been converted into a neutral space with special lighting and atmosphere controls. Commander Carillion floated in a protective bubble. That kept him safe from human contamination. The Villani commander was breathtaking to look at. His crystal body shifted through different colors as he spoke, and his voice sounded like musical chimes. But Hayes could see the fear in the way the alien's light flickered whenever any human moved too quickly. "Admiral Hayes," Carillion said, "through the translation system, I must thank you for saving my people from the Korthik. But I must also ask, why did you come? Your species is legendary in the galaxy, but the legends say you never leave your home system." "Legendary?" Hayes was confused. "We've never met any aliens before today. This is first contact for us." The revelation seemed to shock Carillion. His crystal form flashed bright red for a moment. "First contact? But you are the Terrans, the Deathworld species. Every civilization in the galaxy knows of your world." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward carefully, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. "Commander, we call ourselves humans. We come from Earth, in the Sol system. We've been trying to contact other species for decades, but we never received any signals before yours." "Sol system," Carillion repeated, and his colors shifted to what Elena was learning meant deep concern. "The Forbidden Zone. The Galactic Council marked your system as quarantined over 2,000 years ago. No species is allowed to make contact with Deathworld predators." The humans in the room exchanged glances. Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. Quarantined? Why? Because your world is a death planet, Carillion explained, his voice getting quieter. The gravity is crushing, the atmosphere is poison to most species, and it breeds apex predators. The few long-range scans we have show a world where everything kills everything else. Your species evolved by hunting creatures larger than ours. Starships. Hayes thought about Earth's history. Humans had indeed hunted mammoths and other megafauna to extinction. But that was survival, not bloodthirsty violence. Commander, we're not monsters. We came here because we heard people in trouble and wanted to help. But you fight like demons, Carillion said, his colors flashing with remembered terror. Your ships attack without fear. Your warriors actually seem to enjoy battle against the Korthik. And your communications during the fight were full of aggressive enthusiasm. Captain Mitchell laughed, not realizing how the sound made Carillion's. Crystal formed dim with fear. Well, yeah, we were winning. It felt good to finally get some payback on those bullies who were picking on civilians. You see, Carillion said to Hayes, your people find joy in violence. That is the mark of an apex predator species. Dr. Rodriguez tried to explain. Commander, humans have protective instincts. We get angry when we see innocent people being hurt. We came here to stop the Korthik from killing your people. But the way you fight, Carillion insisted. Your ships ram enemy vessels, destroying both ships. Your warriors sing battle songs while they die. This is not normal behavior for civilized species. Hayes was beginning to understand the problem. What humans saw as heroic sacrifice and protective instincts, the aliens saw as savage bloodlust. Commander, we don't enjoy killing. We enjoy protecting others. There's a difference. Before Carillion could respond, Communications Officer Greg Palmer entered the bay carrying a tablet. Admiral, we're receiving multiple signals from across the galaxy. Word of our intervention is spreading fast. Palmer activated the tablet, showing intercepted alien communications. The translation software was working overtime to process dozens of different languages, but the message was clear. The galaxy was talking about the humans, and they were terrified. Deathworld species has awakened, read one message. They destroyed a Korthik fleet in minutes. All peaceful species advised to avoid Sol System. Another signal was more direct. The Terran demons have entered galactic space. Council emergency session called immediately. Hayes felt sick as he read message after message. Every alien civilization seemed to know about humans except humans themselves. And they all considered Earth a prison planet it should never have been opened. Admiral, Palmer continued, we're also getting military communications. 3 different aggressive species are mobilizing fleets toward our home system. They seem to think we're a threat that needs to be eliminated quickly. The cargo bay fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. Hayes realized that by trying to help the Velani, humanity had accidentally declared war on half the galaxy. Commander Carillion, Hayes said quietly, we need your help. We didn't know about galactic politics. We just wanted to save lives. But now it seems like everyone thinks we're planning to conquer the galaxy. Carillion's colors shifted to what Elena was learning meant deep thought. Admiral, I believe you are sincere, but you must understand, your species terrifies others. The Korthik have raided peaceful worlds for centuries, but they have never fought as savagely as you did today. Then help us, Elena said. Teach us about galactic civilization. Show others that we're not monsters. I will try, Carillion agreed. But first, you must understand what you are facing. The Galactic Council represents over 400 peaceful species. They have kept order for millennia by avoiding conflict. Your very existence challenges everything they believe about civilization. Hayes absorbed this information. Humanity had stumbled into a galaxy where peaceful species had created a civilization without war. And now they saw humans as a threat to everything they had built. "There's more," Corellian continued. "The aggressive species like the Korthik have been contained for centuries because they fight other aggressive species. But you defeated the Korthik so easily that every predator species in the galaxy now sees you as competition." Palmer's tablet chimed with another message. "Sir, we're receiving a formal invitation from something called the Galactic Council. They want to meet with human representatives immediately." Hayes looked around the room at his officers and the frightened alien commander. In trying to answer one distress call, humanity had accidentally become the most important and most feared species in the galaxy. "Commander Corellian," Hayes said, "will you come with us to this council meeting? We need someone to help explain that we're not planning to conquer anyone." Corellian's crystal form flickered with what Elena now recognized as courage overcoming fear. "Yes, Admiral. I will speak for you. But I must warn you, the Council has never dealt with a Deathworld species before. They may decide that humanity is too dangerous to exist." Hayes felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Humanity had wanted to save alien lives, but now they might have to fight for their own survival against an entire galaxy that saw them as monsters. Rescue mission had become something much larger and more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Harmony Station was the most beautiful structure Admiral Kevin Hayes had ever seen. The massive space station floated in neutral space between star systems, its crystalline spires and flowing metal curves representing the art of dozens of different alien civilizations. But as the human shuttle approached the docking bay, Hayes couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying into a trap. "Admiral, I'm reading over 200 different ship designs around the station," reported Captain Ryan Mitchell from the pilot's seat. "Some of these vessels are backing away from us as we approach." Dr. Elena Rodriguez checked her instruments. "The entire station is broadcasting warnings about our arrival. They're telling ships to maintain safe distance from the Deathworld." Delegation. Hayes watched through the viewport as graceful alien ships moved away from their shuttle like frightened fish avoiding a shark. Even here, at the center of galactic civilization, they were seen as monsters. Ambassador Laver Johnson sat across from Hayes, reviewing her notes one final time. She had been Earth's top diplomat for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for negotiating with an entire galaxy that feared humanity. "Admiral, remember that we represent our entire species here. Everything we say and do will be judged as typical human behavior." The shuttle docked with a section of the station that had been specially modified for their visit. As they walked through the airlock, Hayes noticed that the corridor had been reinforced and that several force field generators were active. They weren't being treated as guests, but as dangerous animals that might break free. Colonel Tony Martinez led the security detail, his hand never far from his weapon. "Sir, my men are picking up energy readings consistent with heavy weapons. Throughout this section, they're ready for trouble. Let's make sure we don't give them any," Hayes replied quietly. The council chamber was enormous, with hundreds of different seating areas designed for various alien body types. As the human delegation entered, a wave of movement swept through the assembled representatives. Some aliens activated protective barriers, others moved to the far side of the chamber, and a few simply left entirely. Hayes had expected fear, but seeing it on this scale was heartbreaking. These beings had built an incredible civilization based on peace and cooperation, and they saw humans as a threat to everything they had accomplished. Council Speaker Thren stood at the center of the chamber, his tall, plant-like form swaying gently as he spoke. "Representatives of the Terran species, you stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your actions in the Vellani system and to explain your intentions toward the peaceful civilizations of this galaxy." Ambassador Johnson stepped forward, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. Honored Council Speaker, we come in peace. Humanity received a distress call from the Vellani and responded to help innocent civilians under attack. We had no knowledge of galactic law or politics. A ripple of what the translation system called skeptical concern went through the chamber. Many aliens found it hard to believe that a species could be so isolated yet so militarily capable. You claim ignorance, Friend continued, yet your forces destroyed a Korthic battle fleet with minimal losses. Such tactical ability does not develop in peaceful isolation. Hayes stepped forward. Council Speaker, humans have unfortunately had many wars throughout our history, but we learned from those conflicts that the strongest should protect the weakest. When we heard the Vellani calling for help, we could not ignore their suffering. The chamber erupted in excited chatter as the aliens discussed this concept. Dr. Rodriguez noticed that many species seemed confused by the idea of using military strength to protect others rather than conquer them. Your Excellency called out, a delegate whose species looked like floating jellyfish. The Terrans speak of protection, but their battle communications showed enthusiasm for combat. How do we know they will not turn this aggression on peaceful worlds? Before Hayes could answer, Security Chief Phillips made a critical mistake. Thinking he was being helpful, he activated a holographic display showing human military capabilities. This should help explain our defensive posture, he said, projecting images of human weapons, warships, and battle tactics. The effect was catastrophic. Seeing the full scope of human military technology caused panic throughout the chamber. 3. Entire species immediately evacuated their sections, and several others activated emergency protocols. The display showed humanity as far more dangerous than even the Council's worst fears. Turn it off, Hayes ordered, but the damage was done. The chamber was in chaos as aliens fled or prepared for what they thought might be an attack. Council Speaker. Thren's voice cut through the noise. Terrans, you have just demonstrated why your species was quarantined. You show weapons of mass destruction as casually as others might show art. This confirms our worst fears about Deathworld mentality. Ambassador Johnson tried to salvage the situation. Honored Speaker, we were trying to show that our weapons are for defense only. Humans have no desire to conquer or harm peaceful species. Yet your own history shows constant warfare, replied another delegate, this one resembling a crystal tree. Our databases indicate that Terrans have fought over 30,000 significant conflicts in the last 5,000 years. How can a species so steeped in violence be trusted? Dr. Rodriguez stood up. Because we learned from those conflicts. Yes, humans fought many wars, but we also developed concepts like international law, humanitarian aid, and the protection of civilians. We fight to end fighting. The chamber fell silent as the aliens tried to process this paradox. The idea that violence could be used to create peace was foreign to most galactic species. Commander Carillion, who had remained quiet until now, finally spoke. Council members, I have observed these humans directly. They are indeed violent by our standards, but their violence is selective. They attacked only the Korthic ships that were killing civilians. They offered medical aid to my people immediately, after the battle. But at what cost? Demanded a delegate whose voice sounded like grinding rocks. The very presence of Deathworlders in galactic space disrupts the balance we have maintained for millennia. Hayes was about to respond when urgent. Alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed as an urgent message appeared on every screen in the chamber. Emergency bulletin, announced the station's AI system. Long-range sensors detect massive fleet movements toward Sol System. The Korthic Dominion, Ravager clans, and Void Hunters have formed an alliance. Combined fleet strength estimated at over 2,000 vessels. The chamber erupted in panic again, but this time for different reasons. The three most aggressive species in the galaxy working together was unprecedented and terrifying to the peaceful civilizations. They're going to destroy Earth before we can become a galactic power, Hayes realized grimly. They see us as competition that needs to be eliminated. Council Speaker Thren's colors had shifted to what Dr. Rodriguez was learning meant extreme distress. This alliance threatens more than just your homeworld. If these aggressive species unite successfully, they could challenge peaceful civilization everywhere. Ambassador Johnson saw an opportunity. Then help us stop them. Humanity doesn't want to conquer anyone, but we will defend ourselves. And we will defend anyone else who asks for our protection. The Council cannot authorize military action. Thren replied sadly. We have maintained peace by avoiding conflict, not by fighting wars. Then you'll watch good people die because you're afraid to fight evil, Colonel Martinez said bluntly, earning shocked gasps from around the chamber. But some aliens were nodding in agreement. A few species had suffered under raids from aggressive civilizations and understood the colonel's point. As the debate continued, Captain Nathan Perry of the scout ship U.E.'s Ranger burst into the chamber. Admiral, urgent intelligence from our deep space network. The enemy fleet is larger than we thought. 3,000 ships, not 2,000. They'll reach Earth in 6 days. The chamber fell silent as the magnitude of the threat became clear. Hayes looked around at the hundreds of alien representatives, seeing fear and uncertainty in their alien features. Council Speaker, Hayes said quietly, we're going home to defend our people. If any of you change your minds about helping, you know where to find us. As the human delegation prepared to leave, several alien representatives approached them quietly. Not all species were willing to abandon the humans to their fate, but they would have to act in secret. The ride back to their shuttle was silent. Hayes knew they were returning to Earth to face the largest space battle in human history, outnumbered 15-1, with most of the galaxy too frightened to help them. But as they reached their ship, Dr. Rodriguez noticed something on her. Scanner. Admiral, we're being followed. 3 alien ships just detached from the station and are moving to intercept us. Hayes tensed, thinking they were under attack, but the alien ships transmitted peaceful signals. Commander Carillian's voice came over the communication system. Admiral Hayes, the Valani cannot abandon those who saved us. We are small and weak, but we will stand with you. Similar messages came from 2 other species. It wasn't much help against 3,000 enemy ships, but it was a start. The enemy fleet appeared at the edge of the Sol system like a dark storm cloud blotting out the stars. Admiral Kevin Hayes stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty, watching the tactical display as 3,000 hostile ships moved into attack. Formation. The combined fleets of the Korthic Dominion, Ravager clans, and Void Hunters stretched across space in a line that seemed to go on forever. My God, whispered Captain Ryan Mitchell. I've never seen so many ships in one place. Hayes felt the weight of humanity's survival pressing down on him. The human fleet had grown to 400 ships as every available vessel rushed back to defend Earth, but they were still outnumbered 8-1. Worse, many of their ships were still converted civilian vessels with improvised weapons. Sir? Incoming transmission from the enemy fleet, reported Communications Officer Greg Palmer. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. The main screen flickered to life, showing 3 alien commanders standing together. War leader Vex of the Korthic was flanked by a massive armored creature from the Ravager clans and a dark, shadowy figure that could only be from the Void Hunters. Humans of the Deathworld Terra, Vex announced, his voice filled with contempt. You have violated the ancient order of the galaxy by leaving your prison world. We offer you one chance to surrender. Return to your planet and never leave your system again, or we will destroy every human ship and orbital station. Admiral Hayes stepped forward. This is Admiral Hayes of the United Earth Space Command. We will not surrender to bullies and murderers. If you want a fight, you'll get one." Vex laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Deathworlders are indeed aggressive, but aggression without numbers is suicide. You have perhaps 400 ships. We have 3,000. Your species will be extinct within the day. The transmission ended, leaving the human fleet alone in the darkness of space between Earth and Mars. Hayes looked around the bridge at his officers, seeing determination mixed with fear on their faces. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes," he announced over the fleet communications. "I won't lie to you. The odds are bad, and many of us won't see Earth again. But we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every peaceful species in the galaxy who lives in fear of these predators." General Patricia Lewis was coordinating the evacuation of Earth's orbital stations from her command post on Luna. Millions of civilians were being moved to deep space installations and underground bunkers on Mars, but millions more had volunteered to stay and help with the defense. "Admiral, the civilian volunteers are requesting permission to join the fleet," Lewis reported. "We have mining ships, cargo haulers, even luxury yachts asking for weapons so they can fight." Hayes felt a mix of pride and sadness. This was humanity at its best and worst, ready to fight impossible odds to protect their home and their ideals. Tell them no. We need trained crews for this fight, but have them stand by for search and rescue operations. The battle began at the edge of the asteroid belt, where Captain Troy Adams led a squadron of fast attack ships in hit-and-run strikes against the enemy formation. The human ships darted between asteroids like angry hornets, striking and vanishing before the larger enemy vessels could respond. "This is Adams to all units," came his voice over the communication network. "Remember, we're not trying to win here. We're trying to slow them down and break up their formation." The tactics worked better than expected. The enemy commanders had planned for a straightforward battle, not guerrilla warfare in an asteroid field. Their neat formation began to stretch and break as individual ships pursued the human raiders into the maze of rocks and ice. But the asteroids could only delay the inevitable. The main enemy fleet pushed through toward Earth, swatting aside the human raiders like insects. Hayes ordered his main force to fall back to the orbit of Mars, where humanity would make its final stand. That's when the first miracle happened. "Admiral, new contacts appearing on sensors," reported Lieutenant Commander Beth Turner. "Multiple ships jumping in from hyperspace." Hayes held his breath, expecting enemy reinforcements. Instead, the beautiful crystal ships of the Velani fleet appeared, in formation beside the human vessels. Commander Carillian's voice came over the communications. "Admiral Hayes, the Velani Republic stands with humanity. We are few and weak, but we will not abandon those who saved us." More ships appeared, the graceful vessels of the Gentle Wing Alliance, the geometric craft of the Builder Collective, and ships from half a dozen other species that had secretly decided to support humanity. It was still a small force compared to the enemy, but it represented something unprecedented in galactic history. "Sir, total Allied force is now 600 ships," Turner reported. "Still outnumbered 5-1, but it's better than we had." Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working frantically to coordinate between the different alien technologies. "Admiral, the Velani have incredible sensor systems. They can see enemy ships through sensor jamming better than anything we have. And the Gentle Wings are so fast they can run circles around enemy fighters." Hayes began to see how the different species could work together. Human ships had the firepower and tactical skills. Velani ships had perfect sensors, the Gentle Wings provided speed and reconnaissance, and the Builders had defensive shields stronger than anything else in the galaxy. "All Allied ships, this is Admiral Hayes," he broadcast. "We're going to show these bullies what happens when peaceful species work together. Felani ships, you're eyes. Gentle wings, you're our scouts. Builders, protect the smaller ships. With your shields, human ships, we're the hammer. The enemy fleet approached Mars with confidence. They had never seen the galaxy's peaceful species fight together, and they expected the alliance to collapse at the first sign of real combat. They were wrong. The combined fleet struck the enemy formation like a perfectly coordinated weapon. Villani. Sensors found weak points in enemy armor. Gentle-winged fighters exploited those weaknesses. Builder shields protected the attackers, and human weapons delivered devastating strikes with surgical precision. Captain Sarah Blake led a mixed squadron of human and alien ships in a flanking attack that caught the Ravager clans by surprise. Target their command ship, she ordered. The Vallani sensors show it's controlling their entire formation. The attack succeeded beyond all expectations. Without their command vessel, the Ravager ships began fighting as individuals instead of a coordinated force, making them vulnerable to human pack-hunting tactics. But the enemy still had overwhelming numbers. For every alien ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Allied fleet was being pushed back toward Earth, leaving a trail of wreckage in their wake. Engineer Foster was working to keep the U.S. Liberty fighting as enemy fire pounded their shields. Admiral, we've lost main weapons. Switching to backup systems. Hayes watched the tactical display with growing desperation. They were losing, and Earth lay defenseless behind them. Then Communications Officer Palmer called out with excitement. Sir, massive hyperspace signatures detected. Something big is coming. The largest ships Hayes had ever seen began appearing throughout the system. They were human vessels, but built on a scale that dwarfed even the U.S. Liberty. These were the deep space exploration ships, the generation vessels meant to carry humans to distant stars, now returning home bristling with weapons. This is Captain Diana Ross of the U.S. Horizon, came a voice over the communications. Sorry, we're late to the party. We've been retrofitting in the outer system. The generation ships were not fast or maneuverable, but they were enormous and heavily armed. More importantly, they carried tens of thousands of people who had heard about the battle and come home to fight for Earth. But Admiral Hayes realized they still needed more than firepower to win. The enemy commanders were staying back behind their fleets, coordinating the attack from safety. As long as they remained protected, the enemy could keep throwing ships at the Allied forces until everyone was dead. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes, he announced. We're going to do something stupid. We're going to punch straight through their lines and take out their command ships. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. The U.S. Liberty and 20 other ships would have to charge through thousands of enemy vessels to reach the commanders hiding in the rear. Sir, said Captain Mitchell quietly, the chances of success are basically 0. Then we'll have to make our own luck, Hayes replied. All volunteer ships form up on the Liberty. Everyone else, keep the main enemy force busy. The charge began, with the U.S. Liberty leading 20 human ships and a dozen alien volunteers straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Enemy fire lit up space around them as they pushed deeper into the fleet, taking massive damage, but refusing to stop. Sergeant Alice Murphy led human boarding parties onto enemy ships when the fighting got too close for weapons. Her teams used combat techniques that terrified even hardened alien warriors, clearing ship after ship with brutal efficiency. The climactic moment came when the Liberty reached the enemy command ships. Admiral Hayes ordered a ramming attack on the largest vessel, knowing it would destroy his own ship but cripple enemy coordination. But he never got the chance. At the last moment, Commander Carelian's ship intercepted the enemy flagship with a kamikaze run that shattered both vessels in an explosion of crystal and metal.